Welcome to The Real News. I'm Kim Brown. Within the past week, 5 incarcerated people have died while in custody in Mississippi's Department of Corrections. Now, that's an astounding number in itself, but consider that 25 people have died in Mississippi state prisons since December 29th, a period of less than 3 months. Now, those who are locked up, along with their advocates on the outside, have been sounding the alarm on the human rights abuses happening there.
I would never drink the water at Parchman. I don't like to wash my hands in the bathrooms because when you turn the water on, it's literally the color of mud. Water fountains, when they work, it's the same way the water that comes out of the water fountains, you're too scared to drink. The guards will tell you not to drink. I've had guards give me bottled water because I didn't have any. They wouldn't let me drink the water. But my clients drink that water all the time. So the water varies between 2 ways. It's either too chlorinated or it smells like sewage. And so all the pipes leak, right? So the guys tie their socks around the leaky pipes. And so if the socks are brown, they know not to drink the water. If the socks are white, they know, oh, chlorine's in the water. We can wash our clothes. And that if you're going to drink the water, you're going to drink it at that time period. If there's a boil water notice in the area, the guys don't get bottled water. They're still forced to drink that water. They take their medication with water that smells like sewage. They take medication in water that visibly, if you put it in a cup, and the guys will tell you that they let the water sit and they let all of the soil and all of the particles go to the bottom, and then they just drink the water that's clarified on top.
That was an excerpt from the documentary titled Parchman Prison, Protest and Pain, a special report compiled by activist Devin Springer and RT News. You should check it out on YouTube. It is quite revealing. And today, we're joined with an activist who is very familiar with the ongoing crisis in Mississippi. Mrs. Pauline Rogers is the co-founder of the REACH Foundation, a group that helps the formerly incarcerated to re-enter society. She's joining us on the line today from Jackson, Mississippi. Ms. Rogers, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for the coverage. Thank you.
You're welcome, Ms. Jackson. So first, Ms. Rogers, let's start with the most obvious question. Why have so many people died in such a short span of time while locked up in Mississippi prisons?
The reasons they have died, in my opinion, are numerous. Lack of health care, proper health care, adequate health care, some violence, people under pressure, people treated like animals. They die like animals. So you have a combination of that going on.
So a good number of these prisoners have died from non-violent ways. So what are you hearing from those who are in jail? And the fact that people are dying not because of violence, how does that speak to the conditions that they are facing?
Those conditions are unresolved conditions for years. It's been going on for years. The women's facility here that was built over 30-something years ago was built as a means to intercept some of the problems that was going on at Parchman decades ago. It's just issues that haven't been dealt with. People under pressure. It's like a volcano. Eventually, the lava keeps popping up, giving you warning that there's about to be an explosion. This is what's been taking place at Parchman for decades. And finally, it came to an eruption point by way of revealing through contraband cell phones. So it's been going on decades.
Talk to us a bit more about that, because as you said, these conditions are not new. This has been happening for an extended period of time. But given that we're now in the 21st century, people are smuggling in cell phones into prisons, and as a result, the prisoners themselves are documenting what's happening to them and pretty much advocating for better conditions for themselves. Talk to us about how the cell phones have done this.
Well, the cell phones, you got officers, underpaid staff. All the people that are in prison aren't indigent prisoners. Some of them are come from affluent backgrounds or have had means of generating money. So you have these people, some of the prisoners paying or compensating salaries for underpaid staff that are bringing them in the contraband in order for them to be able to expose the conditions and treatments that's going on inside the prison. So you got them meeting salaries, making payroll to some of these prisoners who get some of the staffers who are underpaid and are uh, eligible for TANF and food stamps benefit with this paid job at correctional facility, at a prison. So you got that going on. And some of the staffers are getting paid more than the state is paying them. And it's created an environment for corruption and corruption at the highest level. We even had a commissioner who fell prey to contract, is now doing federal time. So it's an ongoing crisis that the prisoners have become privy to or prey to and party to and subjected to. And all levels, the prisoners are a part of it.
So the ACLU won a case about 10 years ago against the Mississippi prison system. Can you talk to us about what was achieved and whether or not it led to any improvements?
A lot of cases have been presented with ACLU, Southern Poverty Law Center, and even some of the prisoners. I can remember a guy that was formerly incarcerated, that's no longer incarcerated, filed a suit about the conditions. I believe it was at the time Camp 12 or Parchment, about the plumbing and sewer system. It lasts for a season, or you may just say you put a rim around a plumbing condition and you have a work order that shows that quiets, that settles people from going further, pursuing it further, because you can present a document or a receipt that reflects that you did something, but you may not have necessarily resolved the problem. So that's a lot of what goes on. If you can submit a receipt to DOC, to the governor, that you did something or even to the health department, then it quiets the situation, the circumstance, and the public or the prisoner to say, yeah, we did something, but you, in essence, did not resolve the issue. So it's a systemic corruption. You keep the health department showed conditions of the prison, Parchment, years ago, but nothing was done about it. And even recently, just last year, it showed the conditions of Parchment. Well, the state is not going to reflect itself in a bad way. So you keep getting these perpetual problems unresolved.
And as indicated in the documentary that I referenced at the beginning of the interview, one formerly incarcerated person described how the health department has been barred in some instances for entering the prisons
Absolutely.
to check on the conditions of the water and the sewage, et cetera. But Ms. Pauline, I wanted to ask you, so like I said, this documentary is really good. It was very insightful because it delved into the history of the Mississippi prison system and the factors behind it, that basically this was just a way to re-enslave Black people into a manual labor system that was prison slave labor. So who in 2020, are there any elected officials there who are truly listening to what you and others are saying about Parchment and the other Mississippi state correction facilities, and who, in terms of elected officials, are taking actions on behalf of the prisoners?
There are elected officials, Kimberly, that are listening. Prior to us being in the national news, if you go to my social media page, November the 11th, 2019, I finally got the ears of one of our state senators who has a radio program, had myself on radio program. I invited a Caucasian female to show both sides of the poor being incarcerated. And from November the 11th until we became national news, zero was done. And because I told them the prisoners are at a boiling point. And I, in essence, gave the phone number, posted the phone number rather on social media that I knew these prisoners had access to, and they were given a time to call the radio station so that the senator could hear firsthand through these contraband cell phones the story. But he is powerless without the collective government supporting that. Like right now, we have Governor Tate Reeves, Republican governor, and that's important because he calls himself or refers to himself as a Trump supporter, where it has been ordered by the Department of Justice to come in and investigate Parchman. However, if you're a Trump supporter, you're not going to come in and make yourself look bad. So it's like you come in and you say we're going to be in the Department of Justice is going to come in and investigate. But then you watch on the national news where it's seemingly the president is fighting the Department of Justice. So you can't have it both ways. You either coming in and you want a fair investigation, or you're going to control the parts of the investigation. So you can't say you're closing down Parchman, but you send out 2 or 3 people and you keep certain people there housed, and you make the public think that we're really progressing. And then you're sending these people into private prisons, which is another problem for private prisons. That's a part that we've been working on to close the private prison, because the same thing is happening in the private prison.
You know, the concerns over Parchman have almost become a cause célèbre, with rappers JayZ and Yo Gotti filing a lawsuit on behalf of some of the prisoners. How has the added attention impacted the work that you have been doing, Ms. Rogers?
The added national attention is great. However, the missing piece is because we're not of the caliber of the JayZs and the Yo Gottis, you miss the full impact of the stories and what's really going on, and how deep and rooted it has been going on, because you have opportunists who are grabbing hold, who have the access, the means, the resources to further add legs or extensions to who they are or who they desire to be, that the real stories may get untold. We have memos going back to the 1980s. In one of our transitional homes, we keep on an easel 24/7 the gas chamber that was at Parchman, Camp 29. And then you have the people who are just getting buried. Because for years, Parchman was doomed, but William Faulkner labeled and tagged Parchman as Destination Doom, is what Parchman was called. Destination Doom. Destination Doom meant you were to never leave Parchman. Once you enter, and the Freedom Riders, when they came through years ago, got a taste of that by the then governor, Ross Barnett, who the reservoir in the state of Mississippi is named after this governor, was to put heavy oppression on these Freedom Riders to give them a taste of Parchman and to quiet them, that they never wanted to come through Mississippi again. And Parchman became as Wendy Hatcher, who was the first female chaplain that was hired by Parchman, that Parchman became the for-profit model place for for-profit prisons. And you had the trustee shooters who, in the segregation and gangs, were actually created by the system, not by the prisoners who went in to be gangs, but the system created this. They had segregated parts of the prison. The white prisoners went here, the black ones went there. Didn't matter what the crime was, or if the blacks were innocently put in prison because you were black. No other reason than you were black, and we didn't want you free, and you got incarcerated for that. So you were segregated. Then you had the white trustee shooters who were ordered to shoot black prisoners. Later, black prisoners were armed to be trustee shooters. But they had to shoot other blacks or ended up losing their own life. So the gang creation was started and created by the system.
Ms. Pauline, we're running a little short on time, but I wanted you to have the opportunity to tell our audience the work you and your husband, Frederick, have been doing with the Reach Foundation and some of the stories. If there's a story or two that you could share with us about a person whom that you've worked with as they came out of jail and some of the trauma that they experienced, but and at the same time, the amount of resources they need to overcome in order to not re-enter that system. Can you talk to us about that?
Well, yes, 30 some years ago, Kimberly, they didn't have anything. So we were all over the place: advocacy, activists, housing, transportation, oh, oh, helping with supervision fees, making parole, probation appointments. So we had to be everything. But one of the stories for a woman, the first woman that we transitioned was in 1989, simply because I had an extra room and she needed somewhere. Well, she was released from prison because she had health issues. And those health issues progressed. We ended up trying to find her and did get her a nursing home that would accept her. I don't know how they were able to keep her at that nursing home. And she still needed us because she didn't have family members. Or so that's what she told us. Well, mind you, we were new in the game. So we kept being a part of her support system. Fast forwarding, she ended up having to get moved to another nursing home. Fast forward, another nursing home that was closer to us. She ended up dying. And the house, they called us, and we were very active in her life, and ended up having to bury her. And when they released her records to us, she actually had me listed as a sibling. To this date, before Facebook was popular, it was MySpace. Posted her on social media. Nobody ever came forward. We ended up burying her. We still have her in a mahogany urn that we have seated. Nobody ever to this day came forward. That's one issue, but the barriers to employment, housing. So we provide housing. My husband, he works with, who did 16 years in Parchment, in prison, most of that in Parchment. Still works with, and one of our biggest volunteers is a guy who's older than him that kept this juvenile on track that works with him every day. So we do transitional housing, we do life skills training, workforce development, social training, mannerism, behavior. We teach them how to operate within boundaries because boundaries are an issue. So we're just all over the place in our services. But when they leave us with housing, we're able to give them something to start with when they leave here, whether that's a refrigerator, a table, household items. We're just doing a little bit of everything. We were part, July 1 last year, we were a part of getting House Bill 1352 passed, which gives people that are convicted with drug felonies eligibility to apply for TANF and food stamps. And they've not had that. And you would think that would be something on the list, but that just went into effect in Mississippi, July 1, 2019.
That's incredible. And to our audience, if you've ever seen the show on cable, on cable television on the weekends, it's called Locked Up Abroad. Let me tell you something. Parchment Prison looks worse than the prisons featured on Locked Up Abroad. And that should tell you something that's happening right here in the United States, in Mississippi. And today we've been speaking with Mrs. Pauline Rogers. She is the co-founder of the Reach Foundation, a group that helps the formerly incarcerated to re-enter society. And we've been talking specifically about 25 deaths in less than 3 months in the Mississippi Department of Corrections. These people are facing inhumane conditions. Ms. Pauline, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching the Real News Network.
Thanks a lot for watching. Appreciate it. But do us one more solemn favor. Hit the subscribe button below. You know you want to. Stay up on the videos.